US Highway 15, northwest bound in Pennsylvania. Windy out here, coming on and off. I thought this area looked kind of interesting. I don't know what the reception is in this part of the world, but we're going to find out. Because I don't even know where I am on the map. Oh, I'm by the town of Mansfield, Pennsylvania, out right over. And when you drive, when you have an expediting job, when you do this stuff where you're on the road all the time, your brain gets to wander. I mean, if you have other kinds of work, you've got to focus on work. But this, I don't want to say this is mindless, but this can be somewhat mindless. So your brain kind of wanders around. And I would just, as I'm an older person, I get to look back on life and kind of size things up. Back in the day, let me say that again. Back in the day when you were young, you were, for lack of a better word, stupid. Not because you were inherently not smart, it's just you're not old enough and you don't have enough life experience to come up with ideas. Your view of the world is different. I mean, you look at yourself when you were 15 and compare it to when you were 6. Wow, the difference in what you understood. Now go to 25 and look back at 15. It's the same concept. As you get older, you have a more accurate view of the world. You kind of understand what's going on and how things work. And there's this old saying that was, if you're not a liberal when you're 20, you don't have a heart. But if you're not conservative by the time you're 40, you don't have a brain. And there's truth to that. There's a whole lot of truth to that. And whereas when we were kids, you learned, as time went on, you would kind of start to slowly form your opinions and figure out how the world goes around. But if you go to today, it's not that people don't understand how the world goes around. They're actually being told things that aren't true. And that's the part that bothers me, is you have groups and colleges and organizations running loose out there that are just flat out lying to people about the world, and bursts of stuff that make you want to laugh. And there was some clown on the internet the other day, and he was making something, and he had an apron on, and he was talking very haughtily. Oh, hey, Chloe. And he said, and we're using strawberry milk, so no cows were involved in the making of this. And I go, oh, so strawberry milk doesn't have cows in it. Okay, cows involved in the process. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And if you're just jumping in, we are on Highway 15, looks like northbound here in Pennsylvania, going by Mansfield. This is a long stretch up here. I'm going for a drop off. It's been snowing on and off. The wind's blowing. It's kind of in my face, and my gas mileage is suffering. I'm down to 19 miles per gallon. That blows. Hey, how am I doing? I'm doing good. I got a load. Today's a holiday, so it was kind of nice to get a load. They called me early, and so we got one going from, don't tell me, Westminster, Maryland to Hornell, New York. It's just one pallet. Doesn't weigh much anything. But like I'm saying, when I'm 57, I've said that before. When we were young, we're basically, lack of a better word, stupid, because you don't know any better. You don't get exposed to how the world goes by. People being told things that just flat out aren't true. And they merely hammered into their skulls, so they get an opinion handed to them by somebody with ulterior motives. And then you have to bump into these people, and you got to kind of say, hey, that's not really how this teacher said or my friend said. No, that's not it. It's something that's going on in the news right now that I've been watching, and I don't see the angle, but this whole Greenland thing. Trump is making all this noise about Greenland, and I understand the strategic interest. You have Denmark and you have, let's call it the Principality of Greenland. They're like separate, but they're connected. And I think they were going for independence. It's not a real estate. It's mostly coastline. The rest of it's ice, and it's useless. And I understand the importance of it, but the idea of buying somebody's island is a little weird. We did buy the Virgin Islands off of Denmark, so that's actually been done in the past. Guitar. What does guitar have to do with anything? I don't understand that one. And people are getting upset over Trump saying this and Trump saying that. Well, where are you? I am in Pennsylvania, Highway 15 northbound in Pennsylvania, heading towards Jamestown, I think is the next big town up here. Jamestown, New York. I'll be crossing the border here eventually. Heading for Highway 86 through New York, and 86 is actually my favorite highway to drive on. But back to the Greenland thing. A politician will have an objective. Where am I from? Well, I live in Texas. I'm originally from Colorado, but I live in Texas. I just come up to the Northeast to drive. When a politician has an objective, they say, I want this, and here it is right in front of them. This is this. And they will do a study, and they will gather their friends, and they'll form a committee, and they'll get it in front of a vote, and they'll get it funded, and blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, whatever this is that they want is in effect. It doesn't matter what the party is, it's all the same. But Trump is a businessman acting as a politician, and they ask for that way over there, and then they negotiate their way back down, taking control of Greenland. What does he really want? That's not what he wants. He wants control of the defense. He wants a cheaper lease on that one air base up on the west coast. He wants something, or he wants Denmark / NATO to defend it, or to put military assets on it, because NATO isn't really big on spending their own money, trying to figure out language, right? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he's trying to do something. I'm just curious what that something is. Oh, juice. Nice that one. And something that's going on is young people today, they're real fond of socialism because they've been sold this pie in the sky version of how socialism works, and it's worked a grand total of never. So it's not. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry, that dropped off. Sorry, we went, I'm going up to the mountains right now. What is that? All right, that went out again. I keep getting knocked off the line here. This goes out a few more times. I'm going to have this. So people will cherry pick their way through socialism and just they like or they benefit from it, and not really interested in the other's money. And where you can get benefits. So over here, So over here on one side you got the movers. Here on one side you got the movers and shakers. Then over on the other side you got. And they all make the same amount, no matter who puts. And they all make the same amount, no matter who puts in what effort. And I don't get anything out of putting in the effort. What's the point of putting in an effort? And that's where it all falls apart. And you talk to college kids, and today a lot of them. Yeah, that's part of it. King Toger. I read King Tiger as in the tank. And let's apply socialism. Let's apply socialism. To your GPA. We should give some of that GPA to somebody else. We should give it to the people that don't have as high of a GPA, and you think that's fair. And of course, they don't want to hear any of that. turn around and go, oh, but I had to work really hard to get this GPA, and I didn't go out and party, and I studied. That's exactly what happened. You know, that's the idea. You put in the effort, you get the rewards of the effort. But they want other people who did the same thing with money. And again, they don't click to that. And now you have Hollywood, which I'm not much of a movie person anymore, but Hollywood does the same thing. They get up there, and it's the successful actors and celebrities. They get up there. And don't forget, if you're a celebrity, that means you're smarter than everybody else. Because, you know, you play make-believe, and that makes you smart. But they get up there in front of their podium, and they start spouting off for socialism. Of course, they're multi-millionaires, so none of that's really going to affect them. But if they truly believed in it, why don't they do it with the Screen Actors Guild? You know, you've got a select handful of actors and actresses making the big money in the movies, and you have a whole bunch of people that are sucking hind titty that don't make money at all. Well, should they take their money and spread it out over all these people? You know, make it even, make it fair. There's your chance to do socialism. Of course, they don't. Because the only thing they're seeking is what benefits them. You know, and that's the problem. And that's what everybody's looking for. What can I get for free at somebody else's expense, but I'm not gonna dish out to somebody else from my bag of money or accomplishments. And that's not how that works. I had a mechanic, aircraft mechanic I used to work with back years ago before Venezuela went down the toilet. He was, they had oil and gas offshore, and he worked down there. And he said that country went socialist. This is right about the time they kicked everybody out that came from up here. And he said that what people don't understand about socialism is people will be walking down the street, and the government will pull up next to you and go, why aren't you at work? Take them to their new jobs. Need to fill it. Absolutely. And I hate to say this, but they, you know, for like going to see a college professor, they always say those who can do, those professors really tech. Of course, we need 1 billion lecturers. Oh, absolutely. You get up to a company that's in plumbing, electrical, and say, hey, I want to get involved. And just be there with a good attitude. You become a gopher. You become an assistant to somebody. You don't make a lot of money, but they start working you. You work with your hands. You can have all the AI in the world. They're not going to make an AI that can wire a house. It's not going to happen. There's too many nuances. Same with plumbing. You know, you're working with your hands, working with wood. You're working with your hands, and they will bring you on if you show an aptitude and a good attitude. You're there for a while, then all of a sudden they bring you on as an apprentice. You know, yeah, I'm talking about the 1 billion tech guys. That's something else that's kind of weird. Everybody wants a job pushing buttons. You can't all just push buttons and make money. I'm sorry, somebody has to actually do something. There is a need for button pushing, but there's also a huge need for an electrician or an apprentice plumber or an apprentice carpenter. You've got work for the rest of your life. And you can have a person over here went to college for a few years, graduates with a degree in solo synchronized underwater basket weaving, and they went through an apprentice program, got paid to go through it, and came out the back as a certified electrician making 6 figures. And always has work everywhere in the world. The pilot, he went there as a carpenter every season and enjoyed doing it because he had that skill. So having an education is wonderful. Having a skill, that's the moneymaker right there. Have a skill, something you can do beyond that. And swinging back around to, hey Butters, to the socialist thing. Remember, the whole Cold War was fought over that. And socialism is the financial part of communism, the financial aspect. The World War II ended, the Western forces stopped on the Elbe River, short, about 90 miles short of Berlin. And the Soviets took Berlin and then came to the Elbe River, but they of Berlin. So they made us wait 3 months before they would allow American forces in, and they're including toilets. They just dismantled and installed. Then let us in to clean up the mess. Look on the right side there. And they occupied West Berlin, and we were there for a while, post-war era. And the funny thing is, there was no provision in the agreement for when the Western powers would leave West Berlin, even though the Soviets were telling us to get lost. Okay, we're done. You can leave now. We've got this. We're like, no, we're going to stay. Because that's when the Cold War kicked off and things started going sideways. And, you've heard of the Berlin Airlift, 1948. Where are you at? I am on Highway... I guess they're calling it now that I'm across the border. I'm on Interstate 99, I-99 in New York, northbound, and in 11 miles I'm hitting Interstate 86, and it looks like I'm going west. But it was snowing there for a while earlier. But they wanted the Soviets tried to get rid of the Western powers in Berlin. It was a British sector, American, and French, and then they all combined into one. And we stayed there for years and years and years. And, they hated that. But in the Soviets' mind, they wanted to prove that socialism was wonderful. So you had this island in East Germany of West Berlin, right next to East Berlin, and you could walk between the cities. And the people who worked there all lived in East Berlin because the rent was cheaper, everything cost less, but they would go make money in West Berlin because that's the exciting part. And that was when the Berlin Wall, not the Berlin Wall, but when the Iron Curtain went down, the only way people could escape the joys of socialism was to go across the border, walk across the city, and get into West Berlin and get on a plane. They were losing East Germany, East Berlin, and the Soviet bloc. That was the one way to escape the joys of communism, was to go to Berlin and get on a plane and leave. And they lost between 1,500 and 2,000 people a day were going into West Berlin, getting on a plane and flying out. That was the one hole in the net everybody used. So that's where the Berlin Wall started getting built. I think it was 1962 or 62, to keep people from escaping. And then for the next 30 years, people went out of their way to escape, to get away from, sneaking over the wall, going under, going through it, using balloons, anything and everything they could to get away from that system. And the Berlin Wall fell in 1989. And here we are, 35 years later, 36 years later, and it's like people forgot about it. There's a new generation coming up like, that wasn't that big of a deal. Yeah, it was. That was a big deal. That was an extremely big deal. And now people are going, well, it wasn't all that bad. Maybe we should try it again and do it differently. No, that's not going to work. It never does. Margaret Thatcher got elected the Prime Minister of Great Britain in 1979, and in the 70s, they had a heavily socialist government in Great Britain, and their economy was tanked because socialism always starts out strong with a few people riding and everybody working, and then slowly more and more people ride and less people work, and then eventually it ends up with everybody's had all their money taken away, nobody's working, and everybody's just laying around. That's just kind of the roadmap of it. And she came into office in 1979, and she said, we're going to fix this. We're going to flip it away. We're going to go back to capitalist system. And it's going to be, her statement was, this is going to be a bitter pill to swallow, but we're going to swallow it anyway. And they did, and I remember in the early 80s that the Brits were just lying on their back, just dying because she was forcing their system. And she was in office from 79 to 89, and she fixed it, and they got their country back on its feet. And more recently in was it Argentina here, they were running on a socialist system for decades, and they just elected the guy with the funny haircut. I don't know his name. And he stood up on a podium. It's in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. But behind him was Velcroed words on a wall, and there were all these government agencies and programs are all shut down. We're not doing this anymore. This guy's he was in the presidency for 90 days and turned Argentina's economy around 180 degrees. Just boom. It was a miracle that he was able to do it that quick. And now here in the last month or two, Brazil did the same thing. They watched what Argentina did. Now Brazil just elected a very conservative, right-wing, capitalist-oriented government and president. So they're doing the same thing now. They're realizing that that's kind of how, it's how the world goes around. Now, if you want to go sit in mom's basement, that's fine, but we all can't sit in mom's basement. Sorry, we all can't live there. And there's people who, and right now you're watching on TV, people on YouTube, people losing their minds over food stamps because they think they're entitled to it, and they're used to getting everybody else paying for their existence, and they just think it is, it's owed to them. And there's people losing their minds about not getting food stamp money. Well, you could go get a job like the rest of us. Just saying. But people just freaking out online about it. Mind-boggling. And the more and more people that do that, there's less people making money and more people riding the government. After a while, you run out of people to make the money, because the people making the money are losing it all to the government. So they just go, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then everything falls apart. So you got to kind of have a forward. Have you watched? I did Stranger Things. I watched it when it first came out, the first few seasons. I haven't seen it recently. Interesting series. I like the ideas behind it. I thought it was kind of cool. But it's been a while. I don't get a lot of TV watching on the road, to be honest with you. I kind of play on YouTube a lot out here. When I'm home with the wife, we'll find some series to watch. But yeah, I watched the opening few. I don't even know how many seasons they have of it at this point. Yeah, with all the technology out there on TV shows, there's literally nothing they can't make. Everything they're doing nowadays is just based on what is there. Whoa, you hear that? That's my fuzzle. Where is he? There he is. There he is. Hold on a second. Let me call him out. Hold on a second. Okay, hold on a second here. Speed limit's 65, I'm going 62. Because that's my cruise speed. Alright, hold on. Gotta find a mile marker. Where's my mile marker? There was a post back there, the post is gone. Where's my mile marker? Hold on a second here. There it is. Is that it? Northbound, you got highway patrol in the median coming up on marker 8, taking pictures. Taking pictures is code phrase for shooting radar, and not many people are running radar detectors, even though it's a cheap investment. I highly recommend it. Ooh. So was there something about Stranger Things you wanted to ask? I've been to a few movies recently. There's not a lot out there that really turns my crank. I'm a World War II buff. I like history. I like aviation history with war, military put together, kind of my combos. I like comedies, but there's a lot of stuff out there on the movies that just kind of, they case straight to video, straight to the whole bunch of stuff out there. Well, I'm coming up on a turn up here. Going to be on 86 going into westbound towards Jamestown. Do my drop. I'm showing 45 minutes from the drop. I got a single crate in the back. I don't even know what it is. I usually don't ask. But I'm going to go kick this thing out and go from there. But I wanted to check in. I'm kind of surprised I got reception because we're up here in the mountains and that blows. But I want to check in with you guys. I like to film at night. That's kind of my time I like to shoot. But like I said, this is New York right here. The sun kind of behind us. We're showing northeast bound. It's kind of pretty up here. I enjoy this area. But Highway 86, if you ever get a chance it's east-west highway across New York, take it. Stay off the toll roads, take 86. And I've done it in the middle of the night. And it is the darkest, loneliest place I think I've ever driven at night, because there are no side roads, there are no towns, there are no lights, and a lot of the road is split by trees in the middle. And the trees in the middle totally mask the other side of the road, so you're just in the dark. And these Ford Transit vans have big old bucket headlights, and I like that. You hit the high beams and they go for days. But you can drive for long periods out there without seeing any signs of life. And if you do it, make sure you're full of fuel, because there's not a lot of gas stations out there either. But it's a nice, out in the middle of nowhere, country way to go. But I got a turn coming up, and I got to make a couple calls. I'll catch up with you guys later.